For the balance of the radio broadcast today, we have Colonel Craig Roberts on the line with us, and I want to go over his bio. His website is riflewarrior.com. Craig Roberts is also recognized authority on firearms and marksmanship due to his military background, police background, and participation in marksmanship matches with both police and military, plus writing 3 books, which were bestsellers on various aspects of marksmanship via oral histories by people who have been there. And he's been a keynote speaker for various law enforcement and military organizations, have appeared in 5 history program shows, History Channel programs, secret missions, suicide missions, snipers, and it just goes on and on. He also investigated the Oklahoma City bombing. He was SWAT team commander, helicopter pilot for police department, Oklahoma City bombing investigator, sniper, Marine Corps sniper in Vietnam. And I've had a chance to speak with him at some events and get to know him over the last decade that I've been interviewing, or more than a decade now, how time flies. And so I want to talk about the latest Oklahoma City developments. New information's come out on that in the last 8 months or so since he's been on. I want to talk about the cap and trade carbon tax scandal, as the UN internal documents have come out where they want world government. They know man-made global warming isn't real. They know it's a fraud. This is their planetary tax. I want to get into Obama, Northcom announcing they want to put regular troops on the streets, now happening incrementally. Some of his family, at West Point, getting speeches from Wesley Clark, admitting they want to use foreign troops in America. NLEO 9, 4 months ago, FEMA's own website admitting troops from 14 different nations here, quote, training to take on American terrorists. The MIAC report, the Homeland Security reports that we released, that 2 state police officers gave us separately from California and Missouri. Another one was a federal marshal that gave us the material, saying that veterans, gun owners, conservatives, Ron Paul supporters, people that want to audit the Fed are the main terror threat in America, and what Homeland Security and Northcom are really set up for. And Colonel Craig Roberts, years ago, 5-6 years ago, exposed that here on air, because he has so many military and police sources. And a lot of his, he's retired now, a lot of his Tulsa, Oklahoma police department buddies and state police buddies would laugh at him deer hunting 10 years ago about the New World Order. They're not laughing now. They're calling him up, wanting to understand what's happening. So without further ado, Colonel Craig Roberts for the balance of the radio transmission. Craig, it's great to have you with us.
Hi, Alex. Good to be back.
Where to start? I mean, we've gone from being called kooks and conspiracy theorists because we know how to read Club of Rome, UN documents, textbooks written by the White House science czar, like eco-science, because nobody would look at this stuff, to now it's finally being announced. I mean, where do we start?
Well, it's really hard because it all depends on which tentacle of the octopus you want to grab. There's so many organizations involved that interlink on this deal, because it's the globalist organization that's trying to bring in this new world order of theirs has been around for over 200 years. But what they've finally done is they finally created enough different organizations interlinked to handle their logistical and their political problems that they had in the past. Before, you had separate nations. You had borders. You had everybody taking care of themselves. But they've taken all that away. They've gotten rid of the borders. They're combining the monetary institutions. They're doing everything they can to destroy the first world and redistribute the wealth to the third world, so they lower us down to second world status and bring the third world up to second world status, and then they've succeeded with their new world order. Almost all the dominoes have fallen over on this deal, except us, and we're next. And they're doing a pretty good job with it right now. They're going a lot faster than I ever thought they would. I figured it would be another few years before they would get as far as they did in this year alone. So we're seeing more things happen with this bunch in Washington we've got right now that is totally trying to destroy this country, with very few people able to slow them down or stop them. It's just incredible. It's almost like we just have to sit in the grandstands and watch it happen, Alex. And we talked about this years ago. You and I did. We tried getting on the radio and telling people about it. And like you said, there's people that would call in and say, "No, this could never happen here." And I had people in our own special operations or special investigations division of the police department that were watching me because they're saying this Roberts guy, he's nuts. He's talking about all this weird stuff. He's talking about this new world order. He's talking about the Rothschild plan and all the rest of it. We got to watch this guy. He's off the range here. And now, about 6 or 8 months ago, one of those guys came to me. He's retired now. And he says, he says they all thought you were nuts back then, and now they think you're way ahead of your time. You're an actual prophet. And I said all they had to do was do their homework. All they had to do was read the material that was available out there, and I would have given them some of it. I'd open my files to them. But now they're saying, okay, what do we do now? How do we deal with this? What do we do? And I said, well, for a lot of you guys, it's just a little bit too late to start worrying about how to deal with it. You've got to start preparing. What are you going to do to protect your family? What are you going to do to protect your neighbors? What are you going to do to protect your community? Because that's what it's going to boil down to. It's going to have to be a grassroots effort from the bottom up to where this entire country has a culture that comes up from the bottom up, educates our kids, educates our friends and neighbors, and then is able to stand up and resist all this globalist activity that's going on. We're going to have to do something about securing the borders. You're down there close to the Mexican border. You're Texas. I'm sitting here in Oklahoma, and we look at Texas as a buffer zone right now. We passed a law that if you hired an illegal immigrant, you would go to jail. And so most of the illegals left Oklahoma, but they went to Texas, they went to Arkansas, they went to Kansas. But as long as we've got open borders and we're not doing anything about it, and our own government is discouraging doing anything about it and actually prosecuting border agents if they do anything about it, we're going to have a problem because it's an illegal immigrant invasion. It's not guys coming over here to pick fruit like it was 30 years ago. It's people coming over here with MS-13. They're coming over with drugs. They're coming over with weapons, and they're smuggling in Islamic terrorists. It's just wide open. And so what do we do about that? I don't know. If we're not willing to get the military involved in securing our own borders, then what are we doing with the military? We've got right now, on active duty, we've got 1,445,000 troops of all services. Now, out of that, you've got 1,083,000 stationed inside the United States. What are they doing? We need to have our borders protected, and we're not doing it. And I've had people tell me, well, you can't use the military to protect the borders. I'm going, where did you get that? That's the primary function of the military in this country, is to protect the borders of this country. That's the primary mission, defense of the nation. And it starts at the border. It doesn't start in Afghanistan. It doesn't start in South Korea. It starts here. If we have to go someplace else to protect ourselves by taking out enemy elements or the ability to fight or create terrorism, that's fine. But our main operation for the military is to protect this nation. And we're not doing it. We're not using those guys. We've got governors in border states saying, well, I can use the National Guard to do that, and they're told, no, you can't. That's U.S. equipment. That is not state equipment they've got, and you're not going to use U.S. equipment owned by the Army or the Navy or the Marines to go to the border and do this.
Well, let me stop you right there and go back to something you said 3 minutes ago. You said we've got to take over the grassroots because they've taken over the high ground. They've taken over the federal and many of the state governments. But there is a revolt by the states redeclaring their 9th and 10th Amendment, not for secession, but to declare states' rights. And that's why we now have this internal UN document, not just ClimateGate, but this new internal UN document, 2 of them, where they admit they've taken over all the universities. They admit, in their own words, it's a communist system. They admit in here that they've got to be deceptive, just like the SPP documents from 2 years ago said they had to do North American integration by stealth. They say in here, we've got the youth, and the UN has programs that are teaching the kids to sing global warming songs. I have mainstream links to the New York Times where 7th graders come home and write mock tickets to their parents about taking a hot bath or shower, saying it's too big a carbon footprint. Al Gore's caught on video and audio teaching school kids to tell your parents what to do. Kathleen Sebelius has been caught doing it on C-SPAN. I mean, they admit we have a former Special Forces colonel assigned to Black Ops in Austin. This was in the Statesman, the paper, saying, I now run the new environmental carbon tax. So we have the cities through the UN control with the military. We have Northcom, not just not defending our borders, but saying our real mission is dealing with libertarians and conservatives and veterans and gun owners because they're not going to go along with the New World Order. I mean, so it's not just that the military isn't allowed to do their job. You've read the articles about Brigade Homeland, and tell that story about Wesley Clark, or was it
It was Mary McCaffrey.
Yeah, General McCaffrey, that's right. I'd read a separate article with Wesley Clark saying foreign troops may be needed. I mean, this is really happening. Here's the point I'm making. We've been right this far about what was going to happen. Get into the foreign troops. Get into how they're planning to lock things down, stage terror attacks, blame it on patriots. I mean, we know the next big attacks aren't going to be blamed on Muslims. It's going to be blamed on people like Craig Roberts and Alex Jones.